Hi, I'm Stephanie and I'm making sourdough bread for our family. But I make 3 loaves at once because there's 8 of us and we go through a lot of bread. So I got my recipe from Ellie's Everyday Sourdough Whole Wheat Bread. That's what her name is. And so first what I'm going to do is I'm going to tear my machine, put it on 0 grams. So it's 0. And then I'm putting in a homemade Ezekiel blend. Ezekiel blend has all kinds of things like spelt and kidney beans and barley and other ingredients that we put together, and millet. And so I'm going to start with 600 grams of that. Altogether, I want 500 grams of some kind of wheat for each loaf of bread, so I'm shooting for 1,500 grams of bread. 1,500 grams of wheat. So now I'm going to put my hard bread, and I'm going to put 300 of this one in here. Now, these are not exact measurements. This is just what I chose. You can easily do all hard white or all hard red. This is my hard red. It's finished, and I'm going to put my hard white in. And of course, as I said, I'm shooting for 1,500 grams. 500 grams for each loaf. All right, now that I'm done with that, I'll just push that aside, push all my ingredients aside. This is our mock mill 200 that we got for the family. And we make fresh bread because it has 40 nutrients in it that you will not find in the store-bought because they remove the bran and they remove the outer germ, which means there's no vitamin E, then there's no folate, and there's none of the nutrition in there that you would naturally need for living. And so that's why there's so many health problems with people with bread. And the fact that when they removed the bran and the germ all those years ago, it actually caused people to have insanity problems, and it also caused constipation, and it also caused birth deficiencies because the children were not getting the necessary folate. So the company, they ended up putting synthetic vitamins in. And so now that we use it all together, we get all those nutrients that other people don't get. And this is going to be quite loud, so I'm going to turn it on. Finished, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Nutrimil Artiste with my little bread hook dough attached onto here. I'll start it up on 1 or 2, and then it calls for 2 cups of water per loaf of bread. I'm making 3 loaves, so at 6 cups of water. And then of course you need 1.5 teaspoons of salt per loaf of bread. So I times that by 3. And it's pink Himalayan salt, and I'm going to dump that in the top so it'll mix in with the water. Now here's the stuff that makes it to be sourdough bread. We have our sourdough starter here. and we keep a large amount of it so we can keep everything happy and fed. And it calls for either 1/2 to 3/4 of a cup per loaf of bread. I like to be generous, so I usually put a cup per loaf. So my aim is to do about 3 cups of sourdough. Okay, so I'll put that in here. Now when we take care of our sourdough, I'll just feed it a little bit more fresh flour and water, let it sit for a little while, and then I'll stick it back in the fridge. So I don't do any sourdough discards. I just make sure to feed it at least once a week so it doesn't die. It's not an exact science. If you get some of your measurements off a little bit, it won't hurt anything. And of course I'll put on my lid. We don't want flour going everywhere. We've had that happen before. And then of course, with the artiste, you always want to start with your wet ingredients first. That way it can successfully mix it up. And I'll just take and slowly feed all of my flour into here. I'll turn it up and I'll set on a timer for 8 minutes. So I'm doing approximately 1,179. It's okay if it's a few grams off. And I'm just doing that for 3 of them.
Divided the total by 3.
You can see it's very sticky. Now, you can just leave this in the container to rise and then cook it once it's raised enough. But I like to put it in the fridge overnight, and then we will show you what we do with it after that. So I have my little lids, and I am going to leave this in the fridge, and in the morning I'll pull it out, and then I'll see you then. So this morning I took the bread out of the plastic containers, right here you can see. I transported them to the bowls, and I've been letting them sit until they've doubled in size. You can see how nice and pretty and puffed up they are. So now what I'm going to do is I oiled coconut oil with my 2 pans, and I'm going to simply take my hand, transport them, plop, plop, right into there. And of course I'm going to just play with it a little bit until the top looks a little bit prettier. You see how fluffy it is? That's from the sourdough. So I didn't have to use any yeast. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some saran wrap and let these sit until they've doubled in, well, not doubled in size, until they're a little bit higher than the pans. And then we'll see you then. All right, my bread has risen. In fact, it's risen too much because I was away at church. So that means when I go to cook it, it might cook over the edges of the bread pans, but that's okay. We're gonna go stick it in there at 400 degrees for 40 minutes, and then we'll pull it out. Okay, the bread's done, and as you can see, because I overproofed it, it came over the edge. That part will be extra crunchy. But the boys still love to eat it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove it from its containers, and then I'm going to cover it with a towel because it might be tempting to cut it now, but the structure inside will, it will collapse a little bit. So I have to fight the boys off and tell them they cannot butter their bread. And just one more. See if it'll come out because it's got love handles. Ah. Oops. Good way to destroy it. Alright, and then I just like to take and put a towel over it. That way it'll keep on setting up. I don't know what the professional term is. But yep, in a few hours it'll be ready to cut and then we can eat it.